even if you guys forgot. So pretty much there's a couple of things you got to know about the brain before I get into further about the actual states of the brain, and that is that the brain is composed of three separate brains. First, you have the reptilian brain, which is at the innermost core of our brains, and that pretty much sits atop right here, the spinal cord. It's this orange little sponge-like bean thing. And then that one pretty much is our reflexes, our instincts, and all animals have that. So it's like in any reptile, but all animals have that. Next, above that, we have the mammalian brain, which is this kind of yellow outline that's kind of just placed right on top of that. And this one controls our instincts, our emotions, our nurturing, and those kind of feelings with that. It's also called the limbic system, but I prefer to call it the mammalian. And pretty much all mammals have that. So like cats, dogs, things like that. Those kind of animals have those, and they also have the reptilian brain as well. But humans and higher primates, monkeys, apes, things like that, we have a neocortex, which is this outer brain right here, and that is what gives us our intelligence, our control, our higher thought process. So pretty much through the evolution, we've gained these other brains on top of ourselves because we've needed to process more information. This was a joke about the brains. People think this is how the brains are actually composed, this being the male brain and this being the female brain. So you can either agree or disagree, but, that's right here we have the normal brain states. These are there's 4 states that the brain functions in. Generally, and it changes throughout the day between the 4 states, but we generally are between beta and alpha, which are these higher frequencies, because during the day we're usually a little bit more aware. We're going through processes, driving, things like that, where you have to be very cognitive. So there's the lowest frequency would be the delta, which is this bottom wave right here, and you can see that within 3 seconds there's probably only 4 or 5 waves throughout that range, so it's a lot slower. And it's something when you're sleeping, you're regenerating, you have like the human growth hormone. That's kind of when you're repairing, things like that. So you're in deep sleep, or if you're not quite sleeping yet, you're at least very detached, and you're almost in that state. But right above that is kind of where like the monks and the people who are in religions or cultures who practice meditation, they're usually often in the theta state, because that's where you kind of have your memory recall, your intuition, and things like that. So that's when they're meditating, they might not be in that state yet, but when they get to that point, that's where they'll be. And then right above that, we're in here very frequently is the alpha state, where we're relaxing, creative, visualizing, things like that. And then you can see that the beta and alpha waves are very compact, and they're very fast compared to the theta or delta, which are meditation states or sleeping states, so they're a lot slower. And then the Earth itself has its own frequency that it vibrates at, which is 7.83 hertz, and it's called the Schumann resonance, and that's the heartbeat of the Earth. So just like us and every other living creature, the Earth has its own heartbeat, and so that's 7.83 hertz, which is the alpha wave. So it's just the difference between the ionosphere, which is a positive charge, and the Earth's surface, it's a negative charge, and then mathematical stuff, blah, blah, you get 7.83 hertz. Ways to change the brains are through the binaural beats, as Jennifer mentioned in her speech. There's ways that you can actually change your brain state, and meditation is one of them. There's other activities you can do, but one thing is the binaural beats, and it's in training. What it does is it changes your brain state from one state to another by kind of like coercing it with a designed frequency. And so a binaural beat is an engineered beat of under 1,000 hertz, because our brain can only process certain frequencies, and it's under 1,000 hertz where our brain processes those frequencies better. So generally you design the beats to produce one of the 4 main brain states. So if you want to meditate and you're in like a beta state or alpha state, you'll put the theta so that you can entrain your brain to go into that state. And the way the binaural beats works is one side plays a lower frequency than the other side. And it's usually within a 30 hertz range due to the fact that the 4 brain states operate within a 30 hertz range anyways, because the beta state, which is the fastest state that we normally operate in, is at 25 hertz frequency. So you're not going to need to go a higher frequency that doesn't involve one of our brain states. So for example, right here, we have like, say the left side's playing at 505 hertz and the right side's playing at 500 hertz. You have a 5 hertz difference, which the brain understands, and that's kind of what it shifts the frequency to. So that would be a theta frequency, for example. And therefore, you have to listen to it with stereo headphones because you have to have the two differences in your ears, going with your brain. And so then within minutes, it shifts your brain state. So it's a quick process. Right here, there's other frequencies you can train the brain. These aren't frequencies normally that the brain operates in, but these are 500 years old plus frequencies that like the church used back in the day to kind of create spiritual divination and awakening, things like that. So these are just other frequencies that you can designate the brain to kind of feel these things. So for example, like the lowest frequency, you're liberating guilt and fear, and then down here you're connecting with relationships and awakening intuitions as you speed up the frequency. But those aren't normal operating brain states. These are what they look like when in water, for example, this being the lowest frequency and this being the higher frequencies. And I don't think there's exactly time to show you the example of the frequency of the solfeggio, but it can be any noise realistically, because people design them to how they'd want them to be. Some people like more natural sounds, some people like more dark, mystic sounds. So it just depends kind of what the person who's creating the beat wants it to sound like. You can also do it visually, and for example, we have right here what's called the dream machine on this side, and it's cut out in a particular form right here with a light placed in the middle, and it's a spinning contraption that it's how many RPMs, revolutions per minute, when you're looking at it, that changes the brain state. So if it's revolving faster, generally you're going to be induced into like a higher frequency state, like a beta or a alpha state. And then there's other ways to go about that as well visually. For example, we have crystal refraction right here. And what I saw this in my conference when I went to the MAPS conference was that they have like a little contraption with crystals in there, and they have a light also that kind of shines off the crystals. And the crystals are very edgy, so that's how you get this intense pattern right here. And then the lights that flicker behind that give the lights the color, and then that kind of entrains your brain into a certain state through the beats of the light. Another way to do that, an example of changing the brain state is an Igoro, and the shamans in like the Central American